You Are What You Love, Chapter 2, Learning to Read Secular Liturgies. Jamie Smith begins with this provocative idea that you may not actually love what you think you love. You say you love this, but deep down inside, you may not actually love it. Let me give you an example. I had students who would often come to me and say, I really want to get an A. I think I'm failing. I say, well, yeah, you are failing. And I really, really, really want to get an A, they would say. So then I would tell them, well, this is what you have to do to get an A. You've got to study a lot. You've got to quit playing around so much, get rid of your video games, stop looking at your phone so much, and you're going to have to study this many hours per day and read this many pages in the next few days. That's how you're going to get an A. And then they look really despondent and say, I don't want to do that. I'm like, oh, then you actually don't want to get an A. What you really want to do is actually you want to fail and you want to play around and screw around, but you actually don't want an A. And it's my theory often that unless you're a slave or someone's putting a gun to your head or, you're under extremely trying circumstances, most of us, most of the time, do what we want to do. And you might say you want this, but if you're not doing it, you actually don't want that. If you want to get an A, you'll sacrifice everything to get that A. And actually, our actions reveal what we love. So there might be a bit of a discrepancy between what you think you love and what you really love. Let me go back to the previous example of dieting and exercising. I'm not obsessed with that necessarily, but it's just the point being is, if you say, I really want to get in shape, I really want to, be healthy. Yeah, but if you're sitting on the couch eating Cheetos all day, watching Netflix and you never ever move, then I think you got to say you don't really want to get in shape. You might think you want to get in shape, but your actions reveal what you're really desiring. It's not that you don't really want to get in shape, but your desire for being slothful exceeds your real love or your supposed love for getting in shape. Our hearts are disordered. And so Jamie Smith wants to question, why do we love the wrong things? If we were designed by God to worship, and we're designed by God and our hearts are happiest when we're worshiping and loving God, then why do we love the wrong things? Well, one claim he makes, which I think is very interesting, is that, in fact, the idea of liturgy is what we do when we go to church. It habituates us towards God. But he says our world is actually full of secular liturgies. So in fact, if you think about it, we go to church like maybe 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday. You might go to a Bible study midweek for an hour. But, that's a lot of hours we're not in church. And what's going on throughout the world is not morally neutral. It's not liturgically neutral. In fact, there's church liturgy and then there's secular liturgy. We're always being, in some sense, you go to church is a dirty word, but indoctrination simply means you're learning doctrine. And that's what we do in church. We're indoctrinated. But there's this rival secular indoctrination. There's a rival secular liturgy that happens throughout the entire week. And what he wants us to do is read the secular liturgies and be aware of what's really, really going on in our lives. He has this phrase that he brought up from a psychologist called adaptive unconscious. And a really good example that he brings up is learning how to drive. When you first learn how to drive, when you're getting your learner's permit, when you're a teenager, 16, 17, you're very, very conscious, like flip on, the turn signal, stop at the red light, look left and right, be very, very aware of all the rules, all the yield signs, all the traffic lights. And you go from school to go from home, and every single minute you're being deeply conscious of every action, what it means. It's a deliberate choice. By our age, most of us older, have you ever had the experience where you're at work and you've had a really hard day and you yelled at your boss or something terrible happened, you had a difficult time with one of your colleagues, and you're thinking about this all day, you're really intense, and you're driving and you're thinking about it, you're driving home, and suddenly you're in your driveway and like, oh, I'm here. And do you remember how you got there? Do you completely forgot? Do you remember every turn, every single? No, it's not like it's not magical, your brain was on an unconsciously adaptive level, memorizing the years and years and years of driving home. And so your brain was thinking about one thing, but on an unconscious level, you had kind of gone into what you might call something like a muscle memory, your brain went on autopilot. In many ways, so what the secular liturgies do in our lives is that it's kind of like that adaptive unconscious. We are being trained to be certain ways, not just do things, but think about the world in certain ways. And the secular liturgies train us as much as the Christian liturgies train us. And probably one of the problems is we spend so much time in the world that we're being trained by secular liturgy, and we don't always know it, and that actually might have a bigger influence in our lives. And thus we have the problems. We are Christians, and we profess to love God, and yet our actions don't reveal that. So maybe we actually don't love God as much as we think we do, or our hearts are disordered, our affections aren't prioritized in the right way. So maybe one step towards in reorienting our lives is to expose the secular liturgies that actually rule our lives in many ways. One example that he brings us is going to the shopping mall. Now, some of you brought up that we don't go shopping malls anymore after COVID, but nonetheless, I think we still go shopping. And he's saying the shopping mall has become something like a secular church. We don't think you're going to church, but it's like a church in that you enter and the doors invite you in. And all these little stores on the side, they're like inviting you to be a certain person, to buy certain things. They appeal to our appetites. And, you meander through these beautiful palisades and these hallways. There's light shining through the skylights. There are trees growing on the inside. It's a very inviting place. If we go shopping on a regular basis in these stores aren't just blank, here, buy this stuff, but they're teasing us, they're inviting us, they're showing us what is fashionable, they're showing us what is beautiful, and they're inviting us to buy these things to make ourselves beautiful, to make ourselves acceptable, to go up the hierarchy of being. This is a certain kind of liturgy. I think about advertisement. In the 1950s, when mass culture was beginning, commercials were really funny. Maybe you can Google or go on YouTube and find these old-timey, TV commercials from the 1950s and 60s. They're very didactic. They'll say something like, you want to buy this car for these reasons. These cars are very, very good. They're very, very safe. They're very, very stylish. They'll tell you why you want to buy these cars. Or they'll say, you should smoke these cigarettes. They're very healthy. They taste good, so on and so forth. It's almost like an education. Yet these days, though, when you actually want to buy, when they advertise cars or advertise clothes or advertise whatever, really, it's very interesting. They rarely ever tell you didactically, you should buy these cars for practical reasons. Rather, they're kind of introducing a problem. There's something inadequate about your life. You're an okay person, but you're not really wonderful. Then they'll show a celebrity who's really gorgeous, awesome, dresses beautifully, and they're driving the car, they're wearing the watch, they're wearing the clothes. And in fact, what they're saying is if you really want to be amazing and beautiful and awesome, you should just buy what these guys are buying. They're not selling you a product. They're selling you a way to fill the void in your life. They're telling you there's something defective about you. And that what the defect is almost spiritual. You're not loved enough. You're not fantastic enough. But you can fulfill yourself and make yourself a better person by buying these things. Advertisement, malls, these shopping, these are all secular liturgies. We're bombarded by these things all the time. I'm thinking about what capitalism is. Capitalism is really trying to close the distance between someone that wants to sell you something and your wallet. And they want to make this as easy as possible, as desirable as possible. So if you have enough money, the people that want to sell you something, go on Amazon, click, click, click. They want to reduce the number of clicks you make in your on your phone. The name of the game is appeal to your appetite, to give you what you want, and make it really convenient to get what you want, and close the gap between the inconvenience. So you can get it with very, very ease. And all these things in some way shape our minds. More importantly, they shape our souls, they shape our hearts. They shape our being. These are all secular liturgies. And what it tells you is your appetites are very important. Your felt needs, your hungers, your desires, your ego, your desire for beauty, your desire for acceptance. And it's very easy. You can get it just like that, and you deserve it. And the things you buy, consumerism, capitalism, these, our consumption will make us better people, will fulfill your needs. Now, no one ever says these are quasi-religious things, but they're subtle, kind of like driving, you don't really remember. How did you get to the point where you were very thoughtful about driving every minute and every step versus where it was just kind of an unconscious thing? It happened gradually over a lifetime. We are bombarded over our entire lifetimes with advertisement, shopping, consumption, things that tell us who we are and how to be. These things shape our hearts. And that might be one reason why our hearts are disordered, distorted. We love the wrong things because we're being trained minute by minute by minute to love the wrong things. And that's a sort of a summary of the second chapter, learning to read secular liturgies.